Hey everyone, Andy here from Able Cinetech.
And Jem from the C47.
Welcome, Jem.
Thank you.
Today we're checking out the brand new Panasonic AF100. You can see it here, at least the back of it.
Exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. And we're also checking out something else, right?
This little guy right here, which is a brand new light meter from SONY called the L-308DC. Everybody's going to call it the 308DC. Like, they're not going to call this the AG AF100.
Right.
It's the AF100.
It's
so
308DC. There it is.
And it's a new meter. It's a 3 meters in one, and we'll talk about that after you talk a little bit about this camera.
Right. Well, if you haven't read about the camera a lot already, it's a very exciting new camera, very popular already. And what it is basically is a large sensor video camera. All the traditional sort of video features you'd find on a Panasonic handheld camera, including audio inputs, long record times, standard sort of switches and stuff,
right,
but with a bigger sensor. It's a 4/3 sensor, the same size sensor you might find in a GH1 or a GH2
right,
little Lumix camera. Very
which
big.
Which would be great B cams for this, the GH2.
Definitely.
A cam, B camera
Yeah,
situation.
I'd love to have that combination.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And it also has some other really cool things that make it more like a DSLR or a digital cinema camera, really, I would say.
Right.
And that it has a mode called the film mode, you know, like film, I guess, like sort of like a film camera. And you turn that on, it kind of changes some other things around, including shutter and degrees and ISO. It changes the traditional 0 dB, 6 dB gain
right,
to ISO settings, and that kind of ties right into what you got.
this meter here.
Right.
And what's great about this meter is that this meter is basically 3 meters. We've got an HD Cine mode, which is going to allow you to set your ISO, your sensitivity for your camera, for the DSLR shooters out there who are shooting HD video, perfect for that. Set your shutter speed, and then figure out what your correct exposure is.
Right.
And we have this thing called the triangle in photography or in cinematography, and that's what we're dealing with. We basically have to use 2 of the 3, and then we can come up with the other number.
Right. Yeah.
And so what's great about this camera is this camera has ISO.
Right.
It does have shutter speeds.
Yeah.
Just like in a DSLR camera.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what's great about it is this meter also has another mode called Cine mode, which prior to this would have not really been in a meter that cost as little as this. Yeah, bigger meters.
Nice
yeah.
Soconic, really nice Soconic meters, but just the higher end ones. Yeah.
And what a Cine mode does is it lets us not only put in our frame rate and our ISO, it also lets us set something called shutter angle. And you can explain what shutter angle is.
In film, they had a spinning disc, actually spinning disc in a film camera that blocked light for a period of time. And if half of it was blocked, it's called a 180-degree shutter.
Right, 180 degrees, right.
Right, because it's just half the disc is blocked, right? So, and that became the traditional shutter. I mean, of course...
So motion-wise, the movement that we associate with film, not just frame rate.
Just the actual movement, the blurriness of it all.
The blurriness, that has something to do with it. And high shutter speeds or a different shutter angle can give you the Saving Private Ryan kind of look or something like that.
Staccato, very jumpy,
Yeah, but we kind of want that smeary kind of filmic look.
And that's just 180 is normal, quote unquote, right?
Filmic look.
Yeah.
Right. But there's features inside of here that are tools that video cameras have that are very cool too. And this is the one that confused me for years and years. Can you explain that to me?
This little box, right?
Yes.
Well, we call this a Waveform Monitor. And actually, the camera has one built in too. It's a little button called WFM, Waveform Monitor.
Right.
Hit the button, and this little squiggly box sort of appears on the screen, right? You go, what's that box do? Well, a Waveform Monitor is a tool that actually lets you measure brightness or luminance values, brightness values from on your red, green, and blue channels, right? So it's just giving you a brightness level. And what they've done here is they've mapped it, that brightness level, from left to right, matching the horizontal image that I've produced. So what I'm seeing is from the left side of the image to the right side of the image, the brightness values.
But it's very dark right now.
Right, yeah, it's because the image, the background is just very dark right now.
So maybe Angus as the DP, he could turn on the key light.
And how you know it's really dark, though, is that it's just way down here, because the brightness is actually mapped vertically, right? So
so from dark to light, from bottom to top.
Right, exactly. Okay. So this is the actual brightness level. So you saw before it was just this low squiggly line. Yeah. And we turn the light on and they go boop. Now what you're seeing though when he walks by is not actually him. It's more of a that area there is more of his shirt actually. And why is that? Because his shirt's white. It's bright.
Yeah. And that's the thing that killed me forever. I couldn't get past that. I used to think that that represented the height of the objects that are in there. It's not.
It's brightness.
So his jeans might be down near the bottom, and actually his hair, he has dark hair, would actually be down at the bottom, and then his shirt would be at the top.
Right, because those are darker areas. So it's sort of absorbing light, sort of acting like a reflective
So it is a valuable tool. I mean, it really
definitely
gives you some, some
idea. An idea of exposure really quickly, and it's certainly for if you want to just nail one thing, you could find it. It's not like a sort of three-dimensional tool, a tool you can bring around easily with the zap, but you can certainly use it. Now, if we put a gray chart in there, Angus has a nice gray chart, we can get an idea of where we are in terms of gray.
It's 18% gray card.
This is a standard Fujifilm gray chart.
Yeah.
And he's going to show it there. And on the scale here, as you see, there's Angus. And then next to that, I have an actual line here that represents that gray box.
The Pong paddle.
The Pong. Now, if you move back and forth, Angus, you can see that.
Pong.
That's that gray box. Now, I can just see it there because I know that's got a single value of luminance. So there it is. So that's why it's straight like that. And and now I see that gray box, which would represent 50% on my waveform, which has a 0 value at the bottom, 100 at the top. I can drop that. I should put that box really around.
Oh, because it
50.
should represent middle
gray.
Middle gray.
Yeah, exactly.
So 50 here is middle gray.
There's a hard line for
but
50.
we're not there.
We're not there. So we have to adjust, in this case, aperture, right? We're just going to stop down.
Yeah.
We could reduce the light, of course, but we're just going to, in this case, drop the aperture. You know?
Okay, let's see. Yeah.
And I'm going to go down to about a 2.8. There I am, 2.8, and I'm right dead on 50.
Okay, so now with a meter, and we've got the 308 DC,
right?
We can meter that and what?
2.8.
2.8. But wait a minute. So the thing is, we can't just take a light meter
and just put it there.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, there's two different ways of metering. We can use a reflective meter, which is what cameras have. They basically read the light that's bouncing off of an object and coming back into the camera.
Sensor,
Or we can use what's called an incident meter, where we have this generally a lumisphere, and we can walk up to it and we can point the meter in the different directions of the lighting sources, and we can figure out what basically the readings are.
Right.
But when we are metering to a camera, what we have to do is we have to match the meter to the camera.
Right.
So the ISO we have right now on here
is 400.
400, which is the base.
Which we're calling like 0 dB, if you will. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And the sensitivity. So what we do is we
put
set
400 on
400 on there.
meter.
Frame rate.
24
that
frames.
has something to do with it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Exposure limitations.
Absolutely.
24 frames.
24 frames.
And then the shutter.
And then the shutter.
At 180 degrees. So
Right. In cine mode, or if we were using it with a DSLR, we would set it to shutter speed.
Yeah, 50
and
or
use the
whatever
HD cine mode.
Right. So we did that first. That's how that meter worked exactly as the camera did.
Right.
So we matched the two
and we
together.
can see that they're working and they're matching.
Right. Which is amazing. It works.
Which is great. So it makes using a meter like the 308 DC with the AF100 really easy.
Right.
Now,
so we know that now we know because the meter's matched to the camera and the camera is giving us what we expect. We know what
correct exposure.
It's all correct. Yeah. Exactly.
Good. So this is a great tool, this waveform monitor. But now the advantage to using this is that we can come into a space and we can say, the lighting is whatever the lighting is. It could be a black box,
right.
Or we could have some ambient light or some practical lights on, and we can say, this is where we're starting from. We can now build whatever we want the look to be.
Right.
And we can do it with this.
Right. Just with that. Just a little thing. Yeah.
This little thing, walking around and saying,
needed. Yeah.
it's an amazing. Well, you were downstairs earlier on,
right,
and we were basically, putting the light here and getting a sense for how the light was falling, your key light, your fill light, and that kind of stuff. And this particular set, a little deep, a little flat lighting. F what? Angus?
That was F5.
So that's an F5. So we have a little more room to move around here.
Yeah, you have more depth of field, yeah.
And what are we at? Over here, we're at 2.8. So definitely a shallower depth of field. And this is the language of filmmaking.
Right, yeah.
We want to figure that out. And then what's the background?
1.6, 1.4.
Okay, so about 2 stops difference
back there, yeah.
So we're talking about a lot less light, quarter the amount, and so the background there is going to be, it's more filmic. I mean, you're shaping light.
You're controlling the light back there. There's a ratio, there's a control there,
and there's some little splash lights and little things like that.
Very cool, yeah. So that's definitely a different look. This is much more of a product shot kind of look, I would say, very flat, and that's definitely more of a, cinematic or dramatic, whatever you want to call it.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And so we're using this for ratios, but once we have this matched to the camera system we're using, this becomes an incredible tool.
Right.
Very cost effective. You can use it with lots and lots of different camera systems. It used to cost a lot more money to get a meter that did these things.
Absolutely. It used to be just in those, nicer. I mean, they're fantastic meters. Biseconic too, obviously.
They have spot meters, and they have other features that when you're DPing feature films all the time, and you're using a meter all the time, there are tools in there that really allow you to work with the latitude of your cameras and stuff like that. But for somebody who's shooting with a variety of different cameras, this meter does a lot.
Right.
And it's exciting. And this camera obviously does a lot. Why don't we just walk into this frame of this?
To the difference, right?
Let's switch. So I don't want to be on this side anymore. You're gonna, okay, good. Let's go over there. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, you go first.
All right. You hit my mark, right?
Yeah, in the middle of that thing. I don't know how we're.
What's that?
How do you think?
How are we doing?
So we're at a 2.8 here, and now what you're seeing was shot on the AF100.
Right.
All lit with obviously actual lights, but we basically use this tool Angus used this tool to go around and light and figure out the ratios for this room.
Just like that.
So we've got a 2-stop difference here with the background.
And you see the fall off and depth of field, we're at 2.8 versus where we had before.
Exactly. And this is not a very deep room, so we're already seeing, you know, it's getting kind of shallow. This is the advantage of a large chip, a large sensor.
Right.
And so very, very cool. And thank you, Andy, for having me.
That's great. This is fantastic, and it's a really cool little meter.
Yeah,
Very cool little camera.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.